Welcome to our latest episode of World Class Scholars. Today, we will journey into the mystical and often misunderstood world of African traditional religions, specifically focusing on magic and witchcraft as they manifest in village life across the continent. We're thrilled to have you with us today.
Absolutely. This is such a rich topic. When we think about magical beliefs, many people might picture fairy tales or fantasy worlds. However, in many African societies, the concept of mystical power is a crucial element of everyday life, much like the roles of farming and family.
Right? For many, the universe is filled with a living force, one that can protect, heal, harm, or even destroy. This isn't seen as mere superstition. It's woven into the very fabric of daily activities, from how one deals with accidents to the way people interpret sickness and conflict.
And we're here to explore all of that. Let's first dive into some real stories from African village life to ground our conversation. For instance, consider an elderly man who faced a devastating locust invasion approaching his crops. He took action by burning a special medicine in his field, calling upon mystical powers to protect his harvest. While nearby fields were quickly consumed, his remained untouched. This is quite a powerful testament to how villagers interpret such phenomena.
That's an incredible example. It illustrates how the beliefs surrounding mystical power not only provide immediate comfort, but can also offer a framework for understanding outcomes in life, good or bad. And speaking of tasks like farming, let's consider another example from a modern context: a construction site in a bustling urban environment. Workers encountered a small, stubborn tree resistant to uprooting, and they claimed it was a magic tree inhabited by a spirit. After involving a local priest who made ritual offerings, the tree was easily uprooted. You can see how the mystical and the mundane often intertwine.
These stories might sound like folklore, yet they're deeply embedded in the realities of these villagers. They know that observable events in their lives are often the results of forces they cannot see, framing their feelings toward misfortune and hardship.
Exactly. So let's clarify what we mean by mystical power. In African spiritual beliefs, it's often described as an invisible force that flows between humans, spirits, and the divine. While it originates from God, it can manifest through various mediums: spirits, ancestors, sacred objects, and even words spoken in rituals.
And it's vital to understand that this power isn't static. It evolves as it flows through different entities and individuals. Elders, chiefs, and medicine men are viewed with more authority in these realms, possessing greater knowledge or access to this power. For villagers, this hierarchical relationship can structure their community interactions and responses to life's challenges.
Absolutely. Additionally, the use of magic is categorized into good and evil. Good magic, often referred to as medicine, is socially sanctioned. It is utilized for healing, protection, and prosperity. Experts in this domain perform rituals and offer blessings to safeguard families or ensure a good harvest. Clearly, positive mysticism is integrated into community health and well-being.
Indeed. On the flip side, we find witchcraft, which refers to harmful applications of mystical power. A witch or wizard can be held responsible for sending sickness, accidents, and unfortunate events toward others. In fact, this notion of blame feeds into the larger narrative of misfortune in communities.
Witchcraft, therefore, is often cloaked in secrecy, targeting people through invisible means. One might worry about someone putting a spell on a neighbor, believing that these harms do not happen by accident, but are orchestrated through the misuse of power.
Right. And just to clarify for our audience, while people fear witchcraft, anthropology sometimes distinguishes it from sorcery. Sorcery is characterized by the deliberate use of rituals or toxic substances. However, in everyday conversations, these terms often overlap as communities react to any signs of this kind of mystical danger.
The implications here can be profound. Accusations of witchcraft can lead to ostracism or violence within communities. Those blamed may find themselves facing social consequences or may even be subjected to cleansing rituals to rid them of perceived evil.
It's heartbreaking, but raises a key point. People, particularly women, can be particularly vulnerable when tragedies strike. When a child dies from malaria, for instance, a mother might grapple with scientific reasons, but ultimately search for a spiritual explanation, asking why this misfortune befell her child.
This search for meaning is universal, creating a bridge into how deeply intertwined religion and daily life becomes in the African context. Many layers of faith coexist, with Christians and Muslims alike consulting diviners or engaging in practices that speak to their need for help while simultaneously upholding strong religious beliefs.
Exactly. This interplay underscores that life is not merely a series of mechanical occurrences. Rather, it invites us to wrestle with spiritual meanings, communal ties, and the weight that our words and actions carry.
However, it's important to highlight the potential dangers that arise from this worldview. Fear, jealousy, and suspicion can lead to false accusations that disrupt communities. Even minor disappointments can be attributed to the misuse of mystical power.
That's a critical takeaway, especially for those engaged in health campaigns, legal systems, or pastoral care in Africa. When working within these contexts, understanding these beliefs is essential for meaningful engagement. If we recognize people's fears and longings for protective power, we pave the way for a more effective connection.
What a thought-provoking discussion this has been today. We've journeyed through the ways mystical power influences not just beliefs, but also the fabric of daily life across African villages. From stories of miraculous protection to the fears held about witchcraft, it's evident that these beliefs are rich and nuanced.
Absolutely. In our exploration, we've seen how community members navigate these complex auras of power and belief. Whether it's the preventive measures they take against perceived malevolence or the ways they seek blessings for prosperity, we find an emergent story of resilience.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of World-Class Scholars as we unravel the threads of magic, witchcraft, and mystical power through African village life. Until next time, continue exploring the fascinating interplay of belief and culture in our world.